application of the Eightfold Path in life: right action, righteous action, and holy action. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Right action is one of the 8 crucial factors that help ordinary people become saints. In the Pali Canon, right action is described in 2 forms: righteous action and holy action. Righteous action helps the practitioner accumulate merit in the human and heavenly realms. Holy action assists the ordinary person in becoming extraordinary, transcending the mundane. Lay people often cultivate righteous action, while monastics aspire toward holy action. Therefore, depending on the scope, posture, and perspective of practice, we gain different values in life. The Anguttara Nikaya and Majjhima Nikaya offer various definitions regarding righteous action, which consistently include non-killing, non-stealing, and abstaining from sexual misconduct and sensual pleasures. Although the definition is simple, its application is elaborately detailed in the scriptures. A connection is drawn to help us easily understand the essence of righteous action as the foundation leading to holy action. In other words, there is no holy action of a saint does not encompass righteous action. The Anguttara Nikaya and the Pali Canon describe 2 types of actions, one directed by human intention and the other accidental. Intentional actions tend to have higher efficacy in producing virtuous deeds, with the resulting merit proportional to the mental state and motivation at the time of action, during the action, and after the action. Some actions, though unintentional, still lead to the same outcome. In terms of the physical aspect of cause and effect, these may seem similar, but the resulting merit varies significantly, as illustrated by the following example. Unintentional actions. Consider someone who has a large umbrella and opens it even though no one is sitting beneath it. The owner's intention is to provide shade for customers coming to drink water in the afternoon. Suppose there is a sudden morning rain and people take shelter under the umbrella, avoiding getting wet. Clearly, the merit for the umbrella owner is not significant, since the owner did not intend to open the umbrella to provide shade or shelter from the rain. It was merely a coincidence that passers-by used it. In this case, the merit gained is minimal. Similarly, a large tree stands, and during floods, storms, and rising waters, various creatures like ants and reptiles climb the tree to survive. The tree itself did not intend to grow and provide a safe haven for these creatures during the floods. In reality, the outcome seems to offer support. These are accidental actions, but it would be a mistake to think that actions without intention have no consequence. Although unintentional actions result in less merit, all actions, whether intentional or not, produce physical outcomes, and in legal terms, the effects are similar. For instance, a careless driver may cause an accident that results in death, even though there was no intent to kill. The driver must bear legal responsibility and face various consequences. Even though there was no intention to kill, the careless action still results in negative outcomes for both the driver and the victim's family. From a Buddhist perspective, why is it said that unintentional actions have no karmic consequences? In my opinion, this misunderstanding arises from a misinterpretation of the Buddha's teachings. The Anguttara Nikaya includes the following statement: Ananda, intention is karma. When there is intention, a person tends to manifest actions through speech or deeds. Most interpretations focus on the impact of intention on physical actions and neglect the reverse interaction between the body and mental action. The latter part of the Buddha's statement, when there is intention, a person tends to manifest actions through speech or deeds, is often overlooked. This statement does not imply that unintentional actions have no consequence. Buddha never stated that. He simply said that intention is karma. In science, there are theorems and laws that apply in one direction, and reversing them would be incorrect. Not all laws and theorems work in both directions. Every action has a consequence. Intention is a type of karma. Saying that actions without intention have no karma is vastly different from actions without intention having no consequences. Many scholars today mistakenly believe that unintentional actions have no consequence. In the biological world, countless unintentional actions occur, yet their consequences still exist. For example, a strong wind may break tree branches, causing them to fall onto power lines, resulting in a fatal electrocution, or injure someone walking below. Alternatively, A falling tree might cause a car accident, leading to multiple fatalities. These actions occur without malicious intent from anyone, yet the consequences are still present. Reflecting on such situations clearly shows that all actions have results. Intentional actions, especially those with positive intent, yield greater merit, but unintentional actions also produce outcomes. The law distinguishes between intentional and unintentional killings, as well as killings driven by malice or self-defense. All these are evaluated based on the intent, motive, and degree of action involved. From ancient times, the Buddha emphasized this aspect. Unfortunately, some people have misunderstood and misinterpreted these teachings, which highlight the importance of intentional actions and mental attitudes. These are considered a form of karma, although we cannot see their form, appearance, or specific activity. Without them, there would be no actions involving speech, writing, bodily movements, or other human activities. Intentional actions come in two forms: negative intention and positive intention, personal intention and intention for others. Most of us tend to use ourselves as the reference point, with intentions revolving around us, leading to less impactful results. When someone comes to Buddhism through faith, believing that the Buddha can grant blessings for their actions, they may pray for blessings for themselves, their loved ones, and their families in general, wishing for abundance, prosperity, good health, long life, promotions, and various other desires. In reality, not all prayers yield the same results. Here, we see that self-centered prayers are considered selfish prayers. Selfish prayers result in limited blessings, yielding only a relatively small return. Plant one seed and you might reap 2 or 3, but not 20, 30, 2 or 300, or 2 or 3,000. Praying while performing virtuous deeds to benefit oneself or one's loved ones is akin to bargaining with karma, and such prayers will never yield the expected results. For example, if one offers 10 oranges, 5 bananas, water, incense, and flowers to the Buddha and prays for many things, how can that be possible? The outcome of praying while making offerings may result in receiving help from others during difficult times. But this is inevitable. Sowing a few seeds and expecting a large harvest is driven by excessive greed. The mentality of doing little and wanting much will cause our prayers to fall into selfishness. True Buddhists should avoid and minimize such actions. In the central region of Vietnam, floods often cause significant devastation, leaving many homeless, diseased, and facing severe agricultural losses. The country's attention turns toward the affected region, and many engage in charitable acts, hoping to dedicate the merit to their parents. Although this intention is good, the dedication is misplaced. Using the suffering of many as a foundation for one's merit is a selfish act. Instead, we should shift our perspective. When providing support to those suffering in the central region, we should think, I am fully aware that delays in aid cause additional suffering for the people in the central region. I vow that this support will reach them as soon as possible. I hope everyone knows that we are always ready to share and help them endure and overcome the hardships caused by the disaster. I pray that such suffering does not continue in the future. Whether or not natural disasters occur again depends on other governing laws. These sincere actions and prayers are considered altruistic. Dedication of merit practitioners should strive to transform their prayers into vows. Prayers contain elements of selfishness, while vows open one's heart to all sentient beings, practicing compassion at the highest level. When praying or making vows, one should wish for the well-being of others. The essence of vows or prayers is merely a catalyst. The results are not always guaranteed. For instance, one plants an orange seed and prays for it to become a Bodhi tree. This will undoubtedly not happen. Any positive action, whether accompanied by prayer or not, will bear fruit according to its natural law. For example, if one diligently studies literature every day, even without praying, one will eventually become a writer, poet, thinker, or creator. There is a dialectical relationship between cause and effect. Offering gifts to the Buddha in hopes of gaining wisdom is unlikely to succeed. Such merit will bring material comforts, but wisdom arises from moral conduct, meditation, or extensive study of the Buddha's teachings. The two are vastly different, so no amount of prayer can change that. Understanding this relationship between cause and effect reduces unnecessary prayers. In Vietnam and China, it is common for people to write petitions for safety or dedicate merit to the deceased. These petitions are then sent to temples, where they are placed on large bells, put into ritual bowls, or placed under Buddha statues, in the belief that the Buddha will bless their loved ones with safety or help the deceased attain rebirth. It's not that simple. We should gradually abandon such practices because they are not part of Buddhism. Praying for safety is a psychological support that can have positive effects on the body, especially for those who are ill or in difficult circumstances. The value of cause and effect is established based on the mind. When we initiate a thought, it emits a frequency into the universe. Whether we pray or not, it remains the same, and the results will correspond accordingly. There's no need to pray for it to appear, nor does it vanish without prayer. When dedicating merit from offerings or other virtuous deeds, one only needs to think, I dedicate this merit to my father name and my mother name, so that they may benefit from the Dharma. The outcome depends on two factors. First, the sincerity of the dedication. If it is genuine and not superficial, 1/7 of the merit, as stated in the Kshitigarbha Sutra, will be transferred to the person to whom it is dedicated. Second, the recipient's willingness to accept the merit. They do not joyfully accept it, the merit remains unutilized, similar to a bank transfer that is not claimed. If we care for someone and transfer money from Bank A to their account at Bank C, but they refuse to accept it, the money remains unused. In the same way, dedicating merit is an art of expanding our compassion. It broadens our concern, generosity, and support for others and sentient beings in general. Instead of writing petitions for safety or rebirth, we should dedicate merit sincerely while performing virtuous deeds, allowing the energy of our mind to spread. The one who makes the offering will receive merit, and the one who receives the dedication will benefit from 1/7 of the merit. Writing names for safety or rebirth and sending them to temples only leads to superstitious practices, while the traditional method of dedicating merit taught by the Buddha is neglected. Once we grasp the connection between intention leading to karma through actions, speech, and the positive intention behind actions, we can delve into the three main aspects the Buddha analyzed in the scriptures. Non-harming. This concept has sparked significant debate. Some strict Buddhist scholars argue that non-harming includes not harming any living beings. Therefore, the first precept of the 5 precepts begins with abstaining from killing, which is interpreted as abstaining from eating meat. Such an interpretation is overly strict. In the first precept for lay people, the Buddha primarily advises against killing humans. He does not prohibit eating meat, although there is a distant connection between killing and eating. Without someone killing, there would be no one to sell meat for us to cook and eat. The essence of the first precept is to help us cultivate the seeds of loving kindness, with the highest form being compassion, to respect the lives of others, and to protect peace. This is the most crucial aspect. Historically, economic conflicts have often been resolved through violence. Capitalism emerged by conquering poor nations, under the guise of bringing civilization to undeveloped countries. As a result, many poor countries were colonized by richer nations, primarily because those countries had superior military power and advanced weaponry. This severely damaged the seed of compassion and is unacceptable in the context of the 20th century and beyond. If the United Nations had studied the Buddhist teachings earlier, solutions involving the use of force to resolve economic, territorial, and national interest disputes would have been greatly reduced. The United Nations calls for the elimination of nuclear weapons, weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, and advanced weaponry to reduce the threat of genocide to humanity and other living beings. The first aspect includes resolving all such disputes through dialogue based on negotiation and compromise. Negotiation demonstrates a level of understanding. Instead of killing each other with guns, we can use diplomacy to reach an agreement and cease the conflict with a ceasefire agreement. When negotiation fails, people resort to compromise. How much benefit each side will gain? When benefits are agreed upon, a ceasefire is more likely, reducing the loss of human life to the maximum extent. In reality, negotiation and compromise are always conducted simultaneously. The forms of colonial invasion and annexation by imperialism and capitalism, unacceptable. Buddhism respects the sovereignty and independence of each nation and calls on everyone to do the same. The first aspect is to build peace based on respect for human life. Such action is called righteous action. We develop this action to a higher level called holy action, which involves showing compassion toward all living beings by not eating their flesh, not killing them, and not raising them. Lay people may find it challenging to practice this fully, as most still consume meat. Many people earn a living through fishing, food processing, animal husbandry, etc. These industries bring substantial profits to producers, but carry heavy karmic consequences. Someone once asked me, their family produces sausage, processing several dozen tons each day. Previously, they only sold it. High demand led them to both sell and produce. Production involves direct killing, while selling involves indirect killing. Between the two, direct production carries heavier karma. Selling without directly engaging in killing results in less bad karma, making it a better option than producing. The profit margin between selling and producing is about 20%. Earning slightly less but reducing the killing karma for various species is still better. I suggested that the business owners seriously consider the profit difference between direct killing and production versus just selling. Initially, they may see a loss of about 50% of revenue. The second aspect is the negative karma they must bear in this life, manifested through various diseases, premature death, accidents, and other consequences in future lives. They should weigh these factors to make an easier decision. It is better to give up direct killing and, if necessary, continue with indirect involvement until they can find a better occupation that does not involve killing. Practice of animal husbandry, butchering livestock, slaughtering, skinning, dismembering, roasting, cooking, frying, etc., is direct killing and brings about significant negative consequences, while the income from such work is not much higher than in other professions. Convincing someone to immediately give up this work is difficult. I advise them to clearly understand that such actions bring negative consequences. The cost of medicine they will need later when the bad karma manifests will be far higher than their wages. From an economic perspective, continuing in such work will lead to 100% loss. If they cannot give up this work immediately, they should find a better occupation and gradually transition away from the killing karma. Such action, which is considered righteous, can evolve into a holy action, bringing life to others. Respecting life. Taking proactive steps toward holy action in this situation involves the practice of releasing life. Releasing, restoring, and reviving life. There are many ways to release life: releasing birds, fish, or helping sick people become healthy, assisting those in despair to regain vitality and hope, thereby renewing their lives. Releasing life is not limited to animals. Releasing animals brings only relative merit. Currently, some countries engage in such practices, especially those influenced by Buddhism, where there are Chinese and Vietnamese communities. People enjoy buying fish and birds for release. However, these animals often return to the starting point or are recaptured during their newfound freedom. Unintentionally, they become intermediaries for people to gain merit, while the hunters and sellers accumulate bad karma. Buddhists should buy animals for release spontaneously, without premeditation. By doing so, we avoid creating karma by ordering others to capture them. The merit gained is minimal, but the crime of being complicit in encouraging others to capture them is greater. Without buyers, there would be no capture. Wherever I encounter people selling animals for release, I advise them to give up that profession. They often respond, "If we didn't do this, how would the monks, nuns, and Buddhists have a source to make merit? You should thank me because, thanks to me, you get to do good deeds." While there is some truth to this, it is important to remember that while people gain merit, those who facilitate it incur negative karma. The Buddha taught, a virtuous action must be beneficial to others, but also to oneself. If it benefits others but harms oneself, it should not be followed. Therefore, any occupation that does not bring significant returns but profits from the lives and deaths of animals is never good. The compassionate action of the saints is to transmit the essence of love, to release suffering, to untangle bonds, and to create opportunities for life to be restored. In Buddhist pilgrimage sites, practice of releasing birds has only emerged in the past 10 years. It was not common before. Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese, and Korean people enjoy releasing animals. The local poor in these areas beg for money in various ways, such as tugging at one's clothes, grabbing one's pants, holding one's hand, making tourists feel pity or annoyance, so they give money to get rid of them. Such actions sometimes harm compassion. In India, cows, goats, buffaloes, dogs, and other animals live closely with humans. When we approach them, they don't fear us. The birds are the same. For thousands of years, the collective karma of the Indian people has been not to kill them for meat. Meat eaters consume only certain types of meat. Muslims eat meat, but only beef, goat, and chicken. Christians and Protestants eat all types of meat. Hindus who do not practice strict vegetarianism from birth consume only 3 types of meat: chicken, goat, and fish. Each of these animals represents only one species, not the hundreds or thousands of species consumed in Vietnam and China. In all the markets of India, even in states predominantly Muslim, Christian, or Protestant, there are very few meat and fish sellers, usually just 1 or 2 stalls, because they do not want to create karma for themselves. Meat eaters typically purchase large animals to feed their families for 2 days, with only one killing for the whole family. They do not prioritize taste. Throughout India, even in luxurious hotels and restaurants, there are few vegetarian dishes. Meat dishes consist of simple chicken, goat, or pork. They prepare them simply without extravagance. Whether rich, poor, or a billionaire, they are not attached to taste. One way to protect life within the precept of non-harming is to engage in charity. Charitable deeds are more meaningful and practical than releasing animals. While many people on this planet die of hunger and thirst, some people choose not to help them, but instead release animals. Saving a human life is far more valuable and beneficial than saving animals. We do not discriminate against animals, but this is the reality. Who knows, among those dying of hunger and thirst could be geniuses, prodigies, moral figures, or spiritual leaders of the future. Helping them is helping many people in the future. Wherever we see suffering and pain, we should strive to help, and when we do, we should not pray for ourselves and our loved ones. Doing so will increase our merit many times more than any small prayer. Charity. In our pilgrimages to India and Nepal, we conduct charitable activities, usually raising between $8,000 to $12,000 for members of our group. This time, in addition to over $11,000 in charity, the members of our group also pledged to support over 100 monks and nuns studying in India, each receiving $50, and to make offerings to temples. These actions are highly meaningful because although there are many billionaires in India, helping the unfortunate is rarely a concern for them. Their society is stratified by caste and class, so they do not engage in charity. International visitors do much of the charitable work. To do charity well in India, one must be skillful. If you see poor people on the street and ask them to line up, you will never be able to distribute aid. By the time you've helped the 5th or 10th person, the rest will rush in to grab whatever they can, even fighting each other. As a result, we must stop for fear of causing harm or creating chaos. Therefore, we enlist the help of temples at the pilgrimage sites to distribute vouchers to poor families. They gather in the temple, sit quietly, practice meditation, and direct their minds toward the Buddhist teachings. Our delegation comes and teaches them the art of smiling gently, smiling with laughter, so that their suffering and pain are released from their bodies and minds whenever they face difficulty. Only then do we give them gifts. This method is more stable. We close the doors, distribute the gifts, and gradually open the doors to let them leave in an orderly manner. Otherwise, it is impossible to distribute aid. The psychology of the poor in India is such that they fear missing out, so they push and shove. Supporting monks and nuns studying in India is crucial. Buddhists in India have little money to make offerings. Without contributions from pilgrim delegations, relatives abroad, or capable teachers, many monks and nuns would have to return home after 1 or 2 years due to a lack of funds. In India, after 5 years, one can live anywhere. difficulties, sufferings, and challenges of life are all present there. After gaining experience and enduring hardships, it becomes much easier to propagate the Dharma. This is an excellent training environment. The precept of non-harming includes protecting peace and respecting human life as righteous action. Extending this further, we develop compassion for animals. Better still is adopting a vegetarian diet, though this is not mandatory for lay Buddhists. For lay people who cannot practice vegetarianism, it is better to choose meat from animals already killed, rather than slaughtering them ourselves or asking others to kill them, to minimize the killing karma as much as possible. We should practice charity and offerings, help those affected by natural disasters, and rescue the needy and the poor. We must also understand when to provide immediate aid and when to offer long-term solutions. Saving with a fishing rod refers to vocational training and creating jobs. Saving with fish refers to providing immediate, tangible assistance to help people overcome hardship. Immediate aid or saving with fish involves providing supplies, money, clothing, and specific aid packages to help people survive. Long-term solutions, or saving with a fishing rod, involve addressing poverty by creating sustainable livelihood. For example, if we care for the poor in India, we might establish schools to educate them, ensuring that children from poor families receive a proper education and do not fall into poverty. In the Buddhist pilgrimage sites in India, Vietnam has established 3 schools for orphans and poor children. The most significant is the Linh Son Orphanage in Kusinagar, run by Nun Trithwan, which educates 420 poor children. Whenever we visit, our delegation supports all 420 children, contributing to breaking the cycle of poverty for these children and their families. The second school is Linh Son Pagoda, run by Venerable Linh Quang in Lumbini. He established the school a few years ago, and it now educates hundreds of Nepalese children, the hope of alleviating poverty in the border regions. The third is the Vietnam Buddhist Temple of Venerable Huyen Dio. Occasionally, they offer scholarships to students. These 3 initiatives are highly significant. In India, the poor, especially the unemployed, must work at least 100 days a year to receive a minimum wage. However, due to corruption, 80% of the wages are embezzled by administrators, leaving the poor with only 20%. Corruption in India is a severe problem of the century. Alleviating poverty in India is no easy task, but it is better to do something than nothing. Non-stealing stealing occurs on various levels. First, there is the outright theft of someone else's property. Second, there's picking up someone else's belongings that have been dropped and not returning them. Third, there is the failure to pay taxes in accordance with the law of the country where one resides, which is considered a violation of this precept. Fourth, there is bribery, kickbacks, and collusion. Fifth, there is using pressure to force others to pay for something they are not satisfied with. All 5 actions fall under the karma of stealing. In this context, usury also has an indirect impact. Those who cannot repay their loans often cannot borrow from banks. Taking advantage of this situation, some charge exorbitant interest rates. Most borrowers in such circumstances cannot repay their loans. Even if they can, the karma of the lender is severe. In the scriptures, the Buddha often used the phrase, "What is not given should not be taken." Whether it's a needle, a blade of grass, or anything else without value, one must ask for it. This refers to material possession. The second type of possession is intellectual property, which includes inventions, innovations, copyrights, and various other forms of intellectual property. In the modern era, this aspect is highly developed. Many of the world's billionaires owe their wealth to patents and invention, global markets for their product. When someone discovers a formula, they can become a billionaire. Many Indian billionaires have amassed wealth by developing software for computers and selling it at international prices. A piece of software that costs $100 to produce can generate millions of dollars in revenue annually. Unimaginable profit. Respect for intellectual property has become an essential part of the 20th century and will continue to be so in the centuries to come. When executing contracts, it is crucial to respect intellectual property rights. The Buddhism Today book series, which we have been publishing for over 10 years, has released more than 200 titles on Buddhist research and application. we insist that our staff handle intellectual property rights seriously. Whenever a book is reprinted, regardless of how many thousands of copies, royalties must be paid to the author or translator according to the contract, even if they are unaware. During the third, fourth, or fifth reprint, if we don't inform them, they would never know. We require that they be paid royalty. The authors and translators are very happy when they receive royalties for reprint. First, they feel that the readers appreciate and respect their work, leading to more purchases and quicker sales. This encourages them to write and translate more, contributing even more to Buddhism. The life of India's poor. In our October 2009 pilgrimage to India, we had 80 participants, 40 from Vietnam and 40 from countries such as France, the United States, Germany, Canada, and Switzerland. All were surprised to see that the Buddhist pilgrimage sites, once wealthy, are now impoverished, yet there is no theft. The poor beg, but they do not rob foreign visitors or passers-by. They embody the Vietnamese saying, "Poor but clean, torn but fragrant," which is very impressive and worthy of praise. Life in India is extremely difficult. Some people work as domestic helpers for wealthy families, cleaning, washing, cooking, and caring for children, earning about 500,000 VN per month. If they don't do it, someone else will. Unemployment is rampant, so labor is cheap. A rickshaw ride for 2 people over 3 kilometers costs only 10 rupees, about 4,000 VND. Cost of living in India is also low. A poor family can survive on 30 rupees a day for a family of 4. 1 kilogram of wheat flour costs about 10 rupees, 1 kilogram of potatoes costs about 15 rupees, and 1 liter of milk costs about 23 rupees. A family of 4 can survive on half a kilogram of wheat flour, half a kilogram of potatoes, and 1 liter of milk per day, costing about 30 rupees or 12,000 VND. Their lives are impoverished and difficult. They may push and shove out of fear of missing out. They do not rob. If you leave your belongings in a hotel without locking them, they are rarely stolen. Occasionally someone may be tempted, as is the case anywhere, but overall, theft is rare. Wherever you go, they ask for tips because they are poor. A tip of 10 or 20 rupees is greatly appreciated. Giving and sharing. In righteous action, non-stealing means respecting the property of individuals, groups, or nations. The second aspect is giving and sharing. Respecting is just the initial step in righteous action. Giving and sharing is the second aspect. The second aspect helps us become saints. In our pilgrimage group, not everyone is wealthy, but everyone has a generous heart. After a charitable trip, everyone is left with no money. Everywhere we go, we see poverty. We often compare charitable actions to drops of water in a desert. They evaporate without soaking in. We must strive to share with those in need. From a karmic perspective, sharing others' suffering is doing good for ourselves. Helping others is helping ourselves. Understanding this, we should not regret giving away our possessions, as giving ensures that they remain with us. Merit will act as a guardian, a dharma protector, helping us overcome hardships. Reflect on your life. Many crises occur. Some people never recover, while others remain healthy. Some people face financial crises and nearly lose everything, while others remain prosperous. Next to Jiakno Pagoda, there's a Chinese family. Before 1975, they owned 6 houses in District 5 and a large ice cream factory on Nguyen Tri Phuong Street, next to Tran Khai Nguyen School. After 1975, fearing the loss of their business due to nationalization, they fled the country, abandoning their houses and asset. Now, their family members are scattered across Australia, Germany, and the United States. When they left, they only took gold with them. After paying for their escape, they had nothing left and had to start over from scratch. Each of them now owns 5 or 10 houses. The second eldest brother in this family, in addition to owning 5 houses, also owns a car garage and a beautiful island in Sacramento, California. This example shows that if we do good deeds and accumulate virtue, the loss of assets is only temporary. Over time, through selfless and altruistic actions, we will gain much more. Losing a few things will result in gaining much more. Those who plant the seeds of Buddhism must have this faith. Of course, the effects of merit manifest differently for each person. Some after a year or 2, others after 20 years, or in the next life. We should never become discouraged or disappointed when merit has not yet manifested. If it hasn't manifested, it means it's still intact, and we should be glad. Once it manifests, we enjoy it fully. Doing good deeds without immediate results means our merit remains like money in a bank account. If we don't withdraw the principal, both the principal and interest will continue to grow, never diminishing. Only short-sighted people invest in the short term, immediately using what they earn and thinking they are rich, but in reality, it will soon be gone. When we do good deeds and someone else takes credit, we don't lose anything. Though we don't see the immediate effects, karma will not be altered, and those who steal others' merits will face severe consequences. There is nothing to fear about losing our merits, especially when doing good deeds. The greatest difficulty in Buddhist families today is when one person practices while another does not. For example, a wife likes to do charity, but her husband is not supportive. The husband likes to do charity, but the wife disagrees, leading to a conflict. Some people even hide their charitable actions. Many wives have to hide their charity work from their husband. They don't even dare to accept certificates of merit for fear that their husbands will find out about their charitable activities. If they make a profit of 2 million VND from selling goods, they report a profit of 1.8 million VND to their husbands and use the remaining 200,000 VND for charity, living in secrecy. Husbands should support their wives in doing good deeds rather than forcing them to hide it. This is a good deed, especially when it helps society, and there is nothing to lose as long as it doesn't harm our daily lives. The Buddha provided an excellent spending guideline for us to consider. 25% for daily expenses, 25% for filial piety toward parents, 25% for savings, and 25% for charity. To do good deeds, we should avoid borrowing money to do charity. If we have no interest income, it is not advisable to do charity. Some people are deeply in debt, but when they hear about a charity drive, they immediately participate, even though they haven't paid off their debts. This is not practical. Moreover, when their family members find out, they may lose faith in Buddhism. Sympathetic joy. For those without money, do not force yourself to do charity. You can still contribute in other ways. The Buddha taught us to practice sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is a way of doing charity. Many people without money know how to mobilize others to contribute to charity through their reputation and integrity. Although they don't spend any money, they still accumulate merit by contributing to the charity effort. Those who connect people in this way gain even more merit. If we have money and know how to mobilize others to do good deeds, our merit is multiplied many times over. Western society is highly individualistic. Living in such a culture, one tends to become selfish. Even when eating together, each person pays for their meal. Vietnamese and other Asians who have moved abroad still retain some of their cultural traditions, so they are not as individualistic. However, too much fairness can diminish compassion, while being too generous can lead to bankruptcy. We must manage our finances properly so that charitable activities do not adversely affect our family's finances, ensuring that other family members do not feel burdened by our charitable effort. We must carefully balance our charitable actions. Helping others and saving lives can also be done through spiritual means, such as distributing good books, CDs, or scriptures. The cost of printing and distributing CDs is not high. Each disc costs about 5,000 VND if self-produced. By selecting excellent Dharma talks and targeting appropriate audiences, we can bring great benefit to the public. Some people become strong supporters of Buddhism after listening to a single CD or DVD. We recommend that donors focus on distributing CDs to non-Buddhists, rather than just temples. One of the most important places to do this is at markets, where people from all walks of life gather. By choosing suitable topics for newcomers to Buddhism, we can help many people learn about Buddhism and become Buddhists in the future. This is not very costly. Another good place is at schools, outside university, college, and high school gates. We should choose topics related to youth, ethics, and intellectualism, rather than those on Pure Land, Zen, or Tantric Buddhism, as these may not be appropriate for beginners. By introducing Buddhism from a philosophical perspective, we can ensure that Buddhism will develop rapidly. While printed books are more expensive, costing 10,000 to 30,000 VND. CDs are only about 3,000 VN each and have the potential to transform people significantly. Avoiding sexual misconduct. This is a specialized term often translated as abstaining from adultery. However, this translation does not fully convey its meaning. Abstaining from adultery implies refraining from extramarital sexual relations, but it does not address other important factors emphasized by the Buddha. Many people do not engage in extramarital affairs, but they indulge in self-satisfaction, which is also considered sexual misconduct in the context of sensual desires. This includes premarital sexual relations based on mutual attraction in appearance, charm, beauty, or social status. Even though the couple is not yet married, this is still considered sexual misconduct within the realm of sensual desires. Today, Western society promotes sexual freedom. When two people date, they often engage in sexual relations without considering the consequences, leading to situations where early intimacy can cause a loss of respect within a marriage. Women should be cautious in this regard. Some women believe that giving their virginity to someone they love proves their true affection, especially in cases where they may have to part ways. Women often offer their virginity in such situations, or they may feel pressured by men who claim that withholding sex means they don't truly love them. These are unwise decisions and are considered sexual misconduct within sensual desires. Western society views sexuality as the highest form of entertainment. Poverty porn and cultural degradation from the West have had a broad impact on Asian societies and cultures. Engaging in sexual relations before marriage is already considered sexual misconduct, not only after marriage. This is true in terms of legal and ethical principles within Buddhism, as it reduces our moral value. Sexual misconduct affects our health, leading to life-threatening consequences, as many people cannot control their desires and may contract deadly diseases through sexual relations. Sexual misconduct also includes bestiality, under any circumstances. The scope of this precept is much broader than merely extramarital sexual relations. Some people remain single throughout their lives. Some men choose not to marry because they fear losing 50% of their assets in a divorce, so they move from one woman to another, engaging in multiple relationships. Although this may not violate legal principles, it is considered sexual misconduct from a Buddhist perspective. Cohabitation is becoming increasingly common among some Vietnamese youth, influenced by Western culture. They argue that living together for a few years allows them to determine compatibility before marriage. But this reasoning lacks truth. During cohabitation, couples do not demand responsibility from each other. But once they decide to marry, responsibilities toward the family, spouse, children, and in-laws come into play, creating pressures that differ from the carefree nature of cohabitation. This often leads to the breakdown of happiness. Furthermore, the loss of mystery diminishes attraction. Preserving one's chastity enhances sexual attraction for both men and women. Those who maintain their chastity are highly valued and respected. Marriage culture in India. Indian society is commendable for its strict approach to relationships. Even today, 95% of marriages in India are arranged, with only 5% being love marriages. 5% love marriages mainly occur within Christian, Protestant, and Muslim communities, while the majority of Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs follow arranged marriages. Every Sunday, English and Indian language newspapers feature 6 to 32 pages of arranged marriage advertisement. Divorce statistics in India are surprising to the world. Unsuccessful marriages are mostly love marriages, while arranged marriages have a much lower divorce rate. In the past, Hindu customs were harsh. When a husband died early, the wife was expected to be buried with him, a practice that has now been abolished. Widows rarely remarry, and if the family is financially unstable, the husband's family will provide support. At marriage, the bride's family pays a dowry, and the more dowry the wife brings, the more the husband cherishes her. This dowry allows the wife to be financially independent to some extent, and according to inheritance law, the wife and children are entitled to the husband's assets upon his death. Indian women are rarely seen on the streets after 7 p.m. This has become a cultural norm, passed down through generations. Indian men are less likely to engage in misconduct. There are no karaoke bars, hostess bars, or widespread liquor shops. They don't have the same level of entertainment venues. Rarely, a cinema might open, and upon visiting such places, one would find only men in the audience. Public parks and common areas do not display couples being affectionate. Such activities are considered private, and even holding hands between husbands and wives is rare. This is mainly seen among Muslims and Christians, while Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains have maintained this practice for thousands of years. Western culture has spread to India, but it has not eroded its core cultural values. Indians are considered reserved, which helps them preserve their traditions. Marriages to foreigners are rare, regardless of wealth. Indians prefer marrying within their own culture. Sexual misconduct among conscientious Indians is minimal. They know how to control themselves, even if they love someone. Acceptance of arranged marriages ensures they preserve their most precious virtue. Western culture, however, does not value this, and whether someone has had 10 or 20 partners is less important than whether they are happy with their current partner. The United States has a divorce rate of 51%, meaning 1 in 2 marriages ends in divorce within 3 to 5 years. The number of unmarried couples and single people is rising, allowing them to freely choose partners and leave when they are no longer satisfied. The rate of separation among non-married couples is over 90%. Sexual freedom does not lead to family happiness. In this aspect, Western countries could learn from Asian countries. Sri Lanka, a predominantly Buddhist country, has one of the lowest divorce rates because most people follow the third precept of avoiding sexual misconduct, which is part of right action in the Eightfold Path. Even if one is dissatisfied with a partner or an arranged marriage, they still accept it for the sake of their children, without the need for separation or divorce. Too much freedom can sometimes lead to greater difficulty. The price of freedom can be suffering, not happiness. In free societies, while many things are more accessible, happiness is often built on individualism and personal interests, leading to a decline in compassion, care, and help others. For the saints, avoiding sexual misconduct is about transforming sexual energy. This is a significant challenge for humans and animals alike. Sexual energy is a force that draws beings into the cycle of birth and death, like a magnet, next opposite. The Buddha's spiritual path, outlined in the Eightfold Path, teaches us how to transform this energy, not suppress or repress it. Methods for avoiding sexual misconduct. The Buddha provided various methods for monastics to transform sexual energy. For example, considering older people as parents, younger ones as siblings, and even younger ones as children, helps prevent incestuous thought. This attitude of seeing others as relatives helps curb the desire for physical pleasure. Meditation on the repulsiveness of the body is another technique to overcome lustful desires. Visualizing a corpse going through 9 stages of decay, swelling, rotting, disintegrating, turning into ashes, being devoured by animals, etc., reminds us that the body will eventually return to earth, water, wind, and fire. This helps us see that life should not be idolized as a deity, needing constant gratification. Meditation on the purity of the mind helps us be content with what we have. Contentment leads to maintaining moral purity. Men who are discontent are more prone to infidelity. For example, a man may compare the warmth and respect he receives from a subordinate or a stranger who greets him with a smile and offers assistance to the treatment he receives from his wife who, despite helping him, may not be as warm or affectionate. Such comparisons can weaken a man's resolve to remain faithful. Women may also compare their husbands to other men, leading to infidelity in thought and eventually in action, breaking up their family's happiness. Buddhism is the only religion that, until now, has shown the harmful effects of sexual misconduct and teaches us how to transform it to become saints. Over the course of Buddhism's development, some schools have allowed monastics to marry. In Tibetan Buddhism, 3/4 of the monks marry, while the nuns remain celibate. In Japan, over 50% of monks marry. In Vietnam, some schools also allow monastics to marry. Although the laity accepts these married monastics as spiritual leaders, and they have made significant contributions to society, it should be understood that they can only become high monks, not saintly monks. They may contribute greatly to Buddhism and society, becoming noble and virtuous, But to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death, one must fully transform sexual energy. Therefore, for many years, I have never encouraged lay people to practice for liberation, nor have I urged them to share the same spiritual path as monastics in order to attain liberation, as they still have marital lives. A marital life cannot lead to liberation. This is the essence of the Buddha's teachings as proclaimed in the Agamas, Nikayas, and Mahayana scriptures. Some teachers and lecturers, using expedient means, claim that chanting the Buddha's name once can eliminate countless sins, or bowing once increases merit by 1,000,000-fold, or that one can be reborn in the Pure Land while carrying karma. These are just expedient teachings and will never come true. Even monastics, after many lifetimes or many years in this life, may still struggle to transform sexual energy. Some may falter later in life or abandon their practice halfway. This phenomenon, described by Vietnamese Zen masters as the fall of ripe fruits, occurs frequently. It is a natural process of elimination. The Buddha's spiritual path is challenging, but offers the genuine opportunity for human beings to become saints. Transforming sexual energy. In the Digha Nikaya, the Buddha states that apart from the Shramanas of the Shakya lineage, there are no true Shramanas who can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. This statement has shocked many, leading them to believe that the Buddha was elevating his own teachings while denigrating other religions. However, this is indeed the case, as only in Buddhism does the Buddha teach his Shramanas to fully transform sexual energy. Lay people are allowed to enjoy it, but within the bounds of non-sexual misconduct and sensual desires, maintaining a proper and righteous marital relationship. Monastics, on the other hand, must fully transform it, to the point where even in thought there is no trace of sexual desire, becoming truly liberated. Those who remain attached to sexual desire are still ordinary beings, no matter how virtuous they may be. For monastics, maintaining this precept is the most important aspect. Different Buddhist schools around the world still regard the reincarnated Tibetan lamas as saints, but this cannot be accepted within the framework of Buddhist teachings. For lay people, maintaining the precept of non-sexual misconduct in sensual desires helps them become fearless, righteous individuals. For monastics, fully transforming sexual energy into compassion allows them to universally spread the Dharma, helping and saving people without limitations or distinctions. This is the fundamental difference between lay people and monastic. In the context of the Eightfold Path, right action involves 3 actions related to the body. Practicing 50% of these actions makes one a righteous layperson, earning merit in the human and heavenly realms. Practicing 100% makes one a true saint. For lay people who wish to become saints, there are 3 possible paths. First, those who do not marry can fully develop their spiritual practice. Second, those whose spouses have passed away and do not remarry can achieve this. Third, couples who, after living together for many years, reach a point where they are no longer concerned with sensual pleasures and, although still living together, no longer engage in sexual activity, seeing each other as spiritual companions. Many lay Buddhists have achieved this. When both partners share this aspiration, it does not disrupt their marital life, and they can still become saints. However, if one partner practices while the other is not supportive, practicing partners should not go to extremes like nuns or monks, as this may create a void that the other partner seeks to fill elsewhere. Women who become devout Buddhists often grow indifferent to marital life. They should understand and empathize with their husbands, avoiding rigid practices that create a negative perception of Buddhism. Lay Buddhists should focus more on accumulating merit rather than rushing into liberation. In the scriptures, the Buddha praised exemplary lay followers like Anathapindika and Visakha. Becoming such individuals is truly valuable. Those who rush toward liberation without properly accumulating merit often face great suffering later on. Summary of right action. Lay people and monastics can practice right action in life, including non-harming, non-stealing, and avoiding sexual misconduct, as presented in the Buddha's teachings. By applying these principles, one can accumulate merit, contributing to a peaceful and happy life while supporting the aspiration to become a saint. Right action also helps lay Buddhists develop compassion and understanding, while helping monastics maintain their moral integrity and purity. In summary, right action is a path to enlightenment, foundation for righteous and holy living.